another episode of the Square and Compass podcast. Technically visiting Texas virtually, but that's only half true or one third true because one of the brothers who's joining us today is from Texas, but presently in Costa Rica, traveling for Freemasonry. So, welcome, brothers Khadim Lowe and Deon Williams. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh, move your
Pleasure.
camera a little bit down. There we go. Now I can see you. All right. Camera went up a little bit. All right. Now I do want to talk, and we talked offline, right? I want to talk about Masonic travel because as somebody who follows the Texas Masonic Facebook group and also follows Brother Kadeem Lowe on Facebook, uh, you're always traveling, you're always somewhere, you're currently in Costa Rica taking part in Masonry, and I'm somebody who really encourages Masonic travel. I think it's something that's very important to I think it's something very important to a Masonic career, and to see relatively newer Masons traveling so much, I think, is an awesome thing. And then you suggested Brother Williams to join, which I think is great as well, as a fellow traveler. But before I did that, I was, this could be controversial. I was going through your Facebook posts, Brother Lowe. Now, I was under the impression, I could be wrong, but I was under the impression that sweet tea did not originate in Texas. It was actually from Louisiana. Now I could be wrong,
That is
but
sacrilegious.
that's
Well,
just
this
what I
is
heard.
blasphemous. This is blasphemous right there. You can't say that.
I mean, I'm from Canada, so I don't know what the things are, but I heard it was like a Louisiana, like Mississippi, like it was from that part of I heard Texas kind of stole sweet tea. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, sweet tea is from Texas. Don't let anybody steer you wrong.
All right, so I shouldn't say anything if I go to Texas about that. I could get in trouble.
Yeah,
Uh,
you will get in big trouble. Dion, tell him.
uh, Even if it is partially true, we perfected sweet tea. So you're welcome, world.
All right, we heard you heard it here first, people. Whoever told me that it was from Louisiana originally was lying. It's from Texas. But now we'll go on to the more serious stuff, the purpose of this podcast, right? Traveling. First, it kind of works out well that we're doing this podcast today because Brother Lowe, you are currently traveling. So tell us where you're at, why you're there, what's going on.
Um, I'm currently in Costa Rica, by San Jose. I'm here for Masonic purpose, just to visit the lodges, see the ritual, experience the fellowship, see how they practice Masonry on this side of the world, and having to compare it to what we do in Texas.
How soon after you were initiated, how soon after you were initiated into Freemasonry did you start to travel, and what did that travel look like at the start? Because I tell guys here, for example, so in my Masonic home, we have 7 lodges that meet in different nights of the week, different rooms. Detroit is similar, and I'll tell guys, right? Travel can mean flying across an ocean to visit a lodge in England or Europe. It can also mean traveling across the hall to visit a lodge in your same building, just a different night of the week or different lodge. So for yourself, after you first joined or initiated, how soon did you start to travel, and what did that travel look like? Did you start traveling maybe closer to home and expand out, or were you traveling, further distances relatively quickly?
So I was raised in October 2020, um, one. Um, so basically, I started traveling 2 months after that. So like what December, so 3 months. But right after I was raised, there was a brother that suggested to me the Texas Freemason page that you're a part of. He said join it, right? So here I'm raised and I'm looking at it like, well, is this it? Is this all Masonry has to offer? Surely there's more to that, And I stumbled upon this event on Facebook that was organized by Hillcrest Lodge, that is in Dallas. It's essentially about an hour away from me. And they were having what they call a midnight solstice lodge. It happens every year during this winter solstice. Um, and it's a midnight lodge done in the dark with candlelight. They advertise it, and I happened to be off that day, and I said, you know what? Can I go visit? And someone told me you can go visit anywhere in the world that you want. So it sounded great. And that night, I started a car and I drove off to it. It was awesome. For a first travel, awesome because I was received as a brother. I had very nice treatment by the brethren of that lodge, and I had an all around great experience. Um, and then after that, I got addicted. It's just I wanted to see more, and I just started traveling more.
I really like what you said there. It's something that I think a lot of brothers don't pay attention to, right? There's so much on, and I know it's a double-edged sword, is everything is online, but if you're paying attention and if you are safe about it and you know the legitimate sites versus the illegitimate sites, there's so much information online and on social media about events that are taking place, and they could be events taking place halfway around the world or an hour away in Dallas, or even closer, that you can find and you can go to. And that even doubles to, I always encourage Masons, especially if you're an officer and you're more responsible for lodge administration, sign up for as many different Masonic newsletters as you can. Most districts, England, I think I'm on like 20 different mailing lists from different Grand Lodges, Idaho, Texas, I think, where they will send out newsletters about what's happening in their area. And first, it can give you ideas of where you want to travel, but also it can give you ideas of things you can maybe take back to your lodge or your area and try. So paying attention to social media, I think, is a really important thing and a really useful thing. And like you said, right, you saw something in Dallas that got it started, and then the rest is kind of, now you're in Costa Rica. So the rest is kind of history.
Absolutely. It was a thing where back in the days, we had older brothers that would tell us that the way they stay informed about happening of other lodges will be the newspaper. But in this day and age, I don't think it's a effective method of communication. Social media is definitely the way to go. And when you talked about newsletter, I am doing that now because every lodge I visit, I ask about if they have a newsletter. Brother Deon's lodge, they have a newsletter that goes out every Monday with all the happenings of the month, and there's weekly reminder. So you're right. That's how I'm able to stay informed of what's going on, what's happening, and I'm able to make plans to say, you know what, Wednesday next week, I want to go to this lodge because I saw that they have a master degree. So yeah.
And yeah, that a good segue to talk to Brother Williams, who, not, I don't want to make Brother Williams jealous. One of us is talking to me from Costa Rica, the other from the NTV. So not quite the same, not quite the
Absolutely not the
same.
same.
But nonetheless, your brother Lowe suggested including you and speaking with you as kind of a fellow Masonic traveler. So kind of, I want to start with the same questions for you as I had for Brother Lowe, right? From the time you first joined Freemasonry, how long after did you begin to travel, and what did your travels look like, especially at the start when you might have been newer to the craft?
I was actually an incidental traveler. So my first, I was entered, passed and raised, entered in 2012 and raised October 2013. So my first soiree in the traveling was going to Grand Lodge Communication as an entered apprentice, and I learned very quickly I really can't go into the things that were taking place in Grand Lodge. So, but I did get a chance to meet a lot of influential brothers and met a lot of good brothers, and that set up a segue and a passion for me to want to get raised and go visit them and do work with them in the lodges. So, but for me, it gave we have a similar. I was entered, passed, and raised in California, so for me, we had a similar situation what you have in Canada, where my mother lodge, Long Beach Lodge number 327, we had other lodges that met in that building. So I would go. We would meet on Thursdays, but there was somebody in the building Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I would go visit other lodges on those days, and that made the traveling bug a little easier to transition into because it was just going to the same building on a different day. And at that time, I didn't have 5 kids. I don't recommend doing 5 kids, but it will definitely get into your travel schedule. But at that time, it was easier for me to get around. So I would go to places like Culver City, Fauché, Hollywood Lodge 355, North Hollywood Lodge, and things of that nature. The reason why I personally enjoy traveling, Cameron, is very simple. Um, it goes back to a question you have to ask yourself. Is masonry what you expected, or is it what your lodge told you it was going to be? And if you don't travel, um, you kind of get an isolated version of masonry. So I think, like Brother Lowe said, it's as simple as going to see how they do their degree work, how they initiate candidates, how they raise candidates, and there's always something to take from another lodge to bring back home.
I agree 1,000% with everything you said. I really liked though, again, something you brought up, and actually I just had this discussion. Maybe I'll leave a link in whatever angle it goes on YouTube. I always forget what corner it is. With Most Worship Brother Richard Flynn, Grand Secretary of the Grand Lodge of Florida, we were talking about annual communications and the benefits of attending an annual communication, even if the brother is not even at the entered apprentice level, right? And you kind of brought up, and I think this is true for so many Masonic events. There's the business, there's the meeting. I know in many jurisdictions in the States, right, business is usually done on the third degree. So an entered apprentice may not necessarily feel like attending a business meeting, but then there's all of the social aspects that take place.
Yeah.
In the case of a Grand Lodge annual communication, there's the hospitality suites, there's the meeting with brothers. In the case of a lodge meeting, there's refreshments after the fact and things that you can still do and take part in. And I think the benefit of traveling, one of them, right, is whether or not you're able to, depending on your degree or your progress or take, there's always going to be something that you can take from it and enjoy. And the social aspect of it and meeting other brothers and learning about what's happening with their lodges, I think is a really important and vital part of it and something that more brothers should be taking part in. Did you find when and you kind of touched on this, but just again to reiterate, like going to that event, going to that communication and socializing, even though you weren't able to take part in the meeting itself, quote unquote, just what was that experience for you like of being new and socializing and meeting all these brothers from, I'm assuming all over the state of Texas and
Oh
probably
yeah.
beyond?
It was invigorating because it's like power networking on steroids. What wound up happening is a blessing in disguise because again, as an entered apprentice, you just touched on it. We don't want to sit in business meeting and reading of minutes and and talking about the budget, and those things are important, yes, but I think when you are an entered apprentice and you really don't have an expectation of what you're walking into, it's really not the experience that they're looking for. So what I was able to uh, accomplish when I went, obviously we walked around, we did the hospitality suites, but we really got a chance to hang out with people who were on the other spectrum of their Masonic journey. We got to go out to the local bars and restaurants and really get to meet some of the Grand Lodge officers in a much less formal environment. And we got a lot of questions answered on the level with regards to the first degree, because I went with um, some Masonic brothers of mine, and they were first degree as well. Shout out to Ryu McGinn. He was there with me, and we just had a good time because we didn't know what the expectation was. We didn't know we weren't supposed to be there. So, and because we didn't know, we walked into a good situation and got a chance to make friends for life.
I've talked about this on the medium side of it. Right? There's travel, and then there's Masonic travel. And in the case of Masonic travel, you're dealing with some of those things that you're not going to be dealing with in regular travel, like making sure where you're visiting is recognized by your Grand Lodge, or do you travel with regalia or do you travel without regalia? Relying on the lodge you're visiting to have regalia for you, or your aprons, or do you contact the secretary in advance? Do you, like all of the do you have your dues card with you? All of those things that go into Masonic travel. Um, and so, are you going to check if you're going to a lodge? Are you going to check what degree they open on? Are you going to let them know you're an entered apprentice, or whatever it might be? So, I'm just curious, and I'll go back to brother Lowe. For yourself, as you became more and more experienced as a traveler, what are some of the tips that you would provide to a Mason who either it could be a Mason who's new to the craft, wants to travel, or even a Mason who's been around for a while but never really traveled and is now thinking about, maybe he's retired, whatever it is, and has more time? What are some tips that you'd give to a new Masonic traveler, or someone who's thinking about traveling?
Great, 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 great question. If he's a traveler driving a car, the very first thing I suggest is get an insurance. Get insured, because you never know what happened. And I'm grateful that I have brother Deon take care of that. He's a insurance agent. I have worry free. That is the first and foremost tip I give to any traveler. Make sure you're insured. The second thing is, okay, Texas works differently in Canada. All lodges have traveler aprons. They have aprons that you can borrow for the meeting. So you don't need to take your regalia with you. Um, but usually a courtesy call to the secretary is nice, even though you don't need to do it, because all you have to do is you do scar, but you call them so they expect you. There's that. And then find out if they have social media, or get in touch with someone from the lodge to find out what is the program for tonight. Is it a degree? Is it a stated meeting? So there's that. Now, if you're taking a travel out of jurisdiction, that's why I recommend take your regalia with you, because you just don't know what most jurisdictions do, and that's the beauty of travel, is the search for the unknown, discovery of the unknown. How do they do masonry? So that way next time you come back, you're prepared. So take your regalia with you, and of course have the grand lodges in contact with each other. To the the grand secretary would contact the grand secretary to the jurisdiction you're going to, and they'll let them know, hey, we have this brother that's coming from this period to this period, and to get all the Masonic hospitality you can get. So those are my tips. It's you know, but that's a great question. There's quite a bit that goes into that, but mainly those things. It's what I'll recommend.
Yeah, on a side note with the insurance thing, I'm just going to remind brothers, because I try to remind them of this as well. Nobody, no brothers do it, and it drives me crazy. Is if you got past master's jewel or any Masonic items you get, you should probably get those. I always encourage guys, get those insured separate, or get a provision on your, if you have, say, property insurance, get something on there that lists those specifically, because some of those can be worth a lot of money. Get them appraised, get them put on separate as part of your insurance. And if you're traveling with them, heaven forbid something happens to them, right? You um, end up losing them. So yeah, so that's always my advice on insurance. Insurance is always a good thing. I'm dealing with it Masonically, with Square and Compass, all that stuff. Something good to keep in mind.
100%.
The the and then this is open to either one of you guys, right? And we've touched on this before. You travel, you get a different perspective on Freemasonry, you get different ideas, and you bring those back with you to your mother lodge, to your home. So, what are some of the things during your travels that you've seen that has kind of changed or given you different perspectives on Freemasonry? And what are some of the ways that that's impacted your Masonic journey, and maybe even that you've been able to bring back to your lodge, or ideas, or things of that nature? Either one of you guys, whoever wants to jump in first.
I've seen all kind of crazy stuff. And I mean crazy in a good way. So I've seen some things that I think can actually make the degrees more impactful. Um, like going back to Culver City, Fauché, out there in California. One thing that I took away from traveling there, I think the first time I went, I was a fellow craft. And when I went, yes, they did have a mocked up chamber of reflection. And I know that's a hot topic for a lot of lodges. But it wasn't where the candidate could sit in it. It was there for them to visually take in, but it wasn't operative. So what they did, however, their rules, regulations, can't write anything, everything in their mouth. But what they would do, and I think this is super, super dope, they would take a uninitiated candidate and sit them in a room and let them marinate um, prior to their degree and tell them, hey, write down what you think is about to happen, right? And because again, they don't know anything. They're just, those are their Nicolas Cage Masons or whatever they Googled Masons. And their thoughts are not impugned or not subject to our obligations. And they've been doing that for some time. And to the point to where they have a lineage of all their past masters over the last 20 years, what you thought masonry was going to be. Now they have a reference material to go back to, and they have that lineage that they can actually reference. I thought that was amazing, because they're actually giving um, them an opportunity to grow rather than just come into masonry. We're just going to make you better. Don't worry. We'll show you how it is. Now you can go back and reflect on the person that you were before you were initiated, in those moments right before you received the degrees, and see where your perspective was. And I thought that was next level masonry. It's a fantastic idea. But had I not traveled, never would have seen that.
Brother Lowe, what about yourself? Anything you've seen?
So the different rites of masonry, I've seen the emulation rite, the rectified Scottish rite, uh, the standard Scottish rite. Some of these are the things that I enjoyed, and that I wanna, try to see how it can be implemented in Texas in a way, in some future. But there's that. There's the festive board. I love fellowship. That is my number one motivator. The fellowship, the festive board after the lodge, the the camaraderie, the social aspect of it. It was just wonderful and different, because just as much as I wanted to find out how they do things, they wanted to find out how things are done in Texas. And that's the beauty of it. We exchange ideas. We talk about, things they do, things that we do, and how certain things can be incorporated in both jurisdictions. So there's the fellowship aspect of it, and the different rights as well. So yeah.
Well, touching on that same note, I think what you just shared, I don't want to like gloss over. So you go to learn how they do it. They want to learn how you do it. And I think the reason travel is so important is because that exchange right there improves masonry as a whole. When brothers travel, masonry wins, because it now, while it may take a while for the Grand Lodge to kind of be receptive to any type of change, that's fine. That's inherent in any great enterprise or endeavor, but it gives people a different perspective, and you leave with a different perspective. And I think that's what's most important.
I think that is absolutely right. Right, when Masons travel, when brothers travel, Masonry wins. I think is 100% true, and it's worth it's worth repeating. And that probably really has always been my number one piece of advice to newer Masons is travel and visit as much as you can. Um, not necessarily at the expense of your own lodge, right? You got to make the time there, but any other time you get the chance, travel and visit. And you're never going to be, at least in my experience, you're never going to be disappointed in visiting. There's always going to be something that you can find that you enjoy, even if it's even on some occasions I mean, I can say for myself, right? I've had experiences where visiting a lodge and the meeting just doesn't go well, or it's not a good meeting. But even then, you can kind of pick up, okay, what not to do or what to try to avoid, right? There's always something to learn. I think there's always going to be something to learn from traveling, and I don't know. One I'm curious about. I don't know if you guys have experienced this. One piece of advice I usually give to newer Masons as well is learn how to set up your lodge. Learn where the aprons go. Learn which officers sit in which places, and so you can put their aprons there, where the wands go, where the collars go. Because, and I had this happen to me in Mexico, and I know a brother had this happen to him in Japan. If you're visiting a lodge where you don't speak the language and you have to try to prove that you're Mason somehow, right?
The
One of the
furniture
best ways to
trauma.
do it, yeah, one of the best ways to do it is set up the lodge. At the very least, you should know where the master, senior, and junior wardens are sitting. That's not going to change. And you should kind of know roughly, if you know where those three are sitting, and you can kind of know where the wands go, that's going to be pretty helpful and a pretty good way to prove you're a Mason if you can't speak the language. That's
Well,
been something.
no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. When you said the senior and junior one said, I meant to tell you, it depends on the jurisdiction because again, you know, where our junior and senior one are sitting in Texas, that wasn't the same in England nor in France. It was completely new to me. Where the deacons are sitting as well, it was completely different. So that can be very tricky. It can be very tricky.
I have heard that. Yeah, I have. I've never actually been to one myself. I've been to a lot of different jurisdictions, but so far, even in Mexico, and to my understanding with the brother in Japan, whatever jurisdictions we've been in, it's always been the three principal officers have kind of sat in relatively the same, not the same orientation, put it that way. But I do know there are jurisdictions where there are slight differences, and kind of that's a good thing to check on as well. If you're traveling, make sure that you kind of double check those things. But yeah, that can happen. That's a good point to bring up.
Yeah,
My
I feel like the best way to get cleared up is the Grand Lodge contacts. That's the best point.
Yeah,
I,
where do you guys keep yours? Out of curiosity, for us in Ontario, we have so in our register, which every brother signs. At the front of the book is a list, and every year you have to update it, of the recognized Grand Lodges in the world. And that's usually where we tell brothers to check if they're going to be traveling somewhere. They should have a list there of the Grand Lodges and which are recognized. Is that the same in Texas, or do you guys have a different spot for your
there
list?
is supposed to be a book at the Tyler station, of course. However, there should also be one at the secretary's desk as well. So, because either one of those two is going, well, ideally both are going to be on your investigation committee when you are testing a brother who's visiting for the first time. But there should be two, one at the secretary's desk and one at the little sign-in desk. But we do have it there as well.
And then
And
it's
just
also available for brothers to purchase if they do so wish. So
out of curiosity, we'll kind of flip the perspectives a little bit, or flip the perspectives from in your Masonic career, in your lodges, how often do you guys find yourselves getting visitors, either visitors from other jurisdictions or just within Texas? Do you find it's common, not common, or
all the time.
what's that like? You know, I've oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, all the time at Lebanon Lodge 837, which is the lodge where I'm at now here in Frisco, Texas. We just had a brother visit from India. We've had brothers visit from Philadelphia. We've had brothers visit from where was that other dude? I think he was from Canada. Yeah, because he had the Northern Lights on his lapel pin. So we get visitors all the time. Actually,
And
that's
for
how I
us,
met Khadim.
right, my lodge is a small city lodge, so we don't really get visitors. Um, but we had some. We had the Grand Master of Ceremonies of the Ground of South Africa that visited. Uh, we had some brothers from Mexico. We had quite a few, but not as much as like Deon, because let's say Frisco in Texas here is a growing city, so they're more likely to have more people.
Yeah, I can speak for myself and say I've had the chance to visit Texas a few times. Um, yeah, it's always been a blast. Primarily, it's always been in like the Dallas Fort Worth area. I visited the Texas Masonic Retirement Community a few times,
Did you have some sweet tea
and
when you were down here?
I didn't know it was a big deal. I thought it was delicious, but I didn't know I was engaging in some type of cultural battle. But it was wonderful. It tasted great. The food is great. The food is great in Texas. But I did the Dallas Fort Worth thing, and then I was in Gonzales, Texas, with the Grand Secretary Brad Billings for the 150th anniversary thing at the lodge, the Come and Take It festival, which was a blast. It was a very, very cool time on both accounts. So yeah, I can speak for myself and say Texas has always been super receptive to visitors, at least this visitor. So I think, and right, it's that brotherhood, which is the best part of it, right? Getting to travel and be somewhere new, and you see a square and compasses, and you know you've got some brothers there, right? That's a really special thing. So, and I think your work, especially Brother Low, you know, Dan, I haven't seen. I think I sent you a Facebook friend request, but I haven't kind of seen your travels. But I think it's not just great that you guys travel. It's great that, especially Brother Low, that you post your travels on social media to let others know, right? To encourage the brothers to travel, which I think is a really important thing as well, especially newer guys just joining. I think it's wonderful.
It
Brother Love is
is, and
much better at posting than I am, believe me.
I was about to say, out of because we're the Texas Traveler, we're a group of guys, but out of all of us, it's me that posts everything. I encourage the other guys to say, "Hey, post what you did." But I get it. It's they may not have time or it's not their thing. But to me, it goes with the idea of growing up. You had this fascination about Masons, and you look at the building from the outside, right? And you're like, I wonder what's inside. I wonder what's behind these walls. And now I realize I'm like, oh well, I'm from the inside now. So how about I take pictures and share with the world what I'm seeing, right? Because there may be brothers that may not be able to travel to see what I'm seeing. So they're seeing it through my lenses. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that I kind of misspoke a little bit. Hopefully it does, the social media stuff encourages newer Masons to travel, but also maybe encourages some older Masons to travel. I know Masons who've been members for decades and never visited a lodge other than their own, which to me, it's like, what are you doing, right? Um, you got to try to get out there. So either way, I think it's great encouragement. And I know not everybody likes social media, right? Which is fine. There are a lot of Masons who don't even have social media accounts, which is fine as well. But to post and encourage others, I think is a good thing too. And so thank you for doing that, And how much longer you got today before it's what, 3 o'clock your time? How much longer before
It
you'll be
is.
visiting the lodge in Costa Rica? Because you're going to that tonight, right?
I'm going to that. No, it's Sunday. So going there Tuesday, but then Monday I'm touring the Grand Lodge building. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday I am trying. Okay, Tuesday I have the Santé Caché, the French Lodge, and then Wednesday and Thursday I'm trying to select which one I want to do. As far as the strict temple observance lodges and then a rectified Scottish Rite Lodge, that's what I have in mind right now. But I'm very excited. One thing that I wanted to come back on as far as the sharing on social media, I've been having more of, because also I'm part of appendant bodies. The effect I've been having on people was more, people are discovering masonry on their Netherlands, right? Because people usually know their traditional Blue Lodge, Scottish Rite, Iroquois, but I get a lot of people now that are like, "Hey, what's this Masonic body? What's this body?" And I'm happy to share about that because, you know, I want to share the light and make all less informed brethren to let them know what's there. So whether it is travel, whether it is a meeting of another Masonic body, it's always good to get some positive feedback and some questions that steers that ends up in long discussion with brethren, where we share views and things like that. So yeah.
Very, very cool. I very much hope I'll get the chance one day to visit. I mean, I'm sure I will get the chance to be back in Texas. And if your travels ever bring you up north, I hope to see you guys in Windsor. It's just as nice temperature wise as Costa Rica. So I think you'll enjoy it just as much. It's just as beautiful. They call Windsor the Costa Rica of Canada. So maybe you can come up here one day.
I may have to wait because
Definitely.
I'm sweating hard here. Not as like Texas, but it is hot.
And I mean, it's definitely got to be as nice as the NTB. So come, you guys will have a great time. So thank
Yeah,
you
no,
guys both so much for joining. And we just focused on travel, but thank you for all your work in Freemasonry. I know your treasurers, your junior wardens, you do a lot in your lodges. So obviously, thank you for that. And thank you guys for joining us on the podcast. We really appreciate it.
thanks, Cameron. We appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.